Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
The Calgary Flames take the Jets to the limit, but they fall in a shootout by a final score of 4-3. Once again, my name's Conrad Krausert. Welcome to Game Over Calgary. And that's the kind of game I said I am okay with as a Flames fan. Was it the best game I've ever seen this Calgary Flames play organizationally? No. Was it fun for vast periods of it? In my opinion, yes. Was it kind of a let's play darts and whoever has the better bounces wins? Also, yes. Was I watching this game with under 2 hours of sleep in the last 48 hours? Also, yes, but that will just make this show all the more fun. As I said, my name's Conrad. Welcome to Game Over Calgary. You know, I've been pretty negative when the Flames have won recently. You know what? I was pretty happy watching this one. Flames had their chances. They had a roster that, you know, didn't look strictly the worst. Maybe this is starting to go in the right direction. Are the wins going to fall off the face of the planet at some point? Yes. Are pity points maybe going to prevent us from falling below the Toronto Maple Leafs, who the wheels have suddenly fallen off on? Who knows? But it would be so poetic if Calgary somehow misses the playoffs by 1 point one year, and this is the first overall by 1 point the next year because of a overtime or shootout win. Oh, it's just so Flames. Anyways, yeah, pretty good effort from the Calgary Flames today. I think from top to bottom, obviously a little bit hard with some of the losses that the Flames took today. But all in all, relatively happy, and I think a lot of the fan base probably feels similar. If you're in chat, please feel free to reach out. Tell me how you felt about the game as we go on throughout our recap here in period number 1. First period, a little bit more of a back and forth affair. It's like that round 1 in a heavyweight title bout that's not taking place at the White House. Just kind of feeling out each other, and I know this is the second game of the third game of the season series and final game of the season series. It feels so weird to say that. We're in November and we won't see the Jets again until playoff time. But the Flames definitely trying to bounce back from that October 24th result against Winnipeg where they lost 5-3. So yeah, that first period, the feeling out, trying to figure out what this current version of the Calgary Flames is. And I think us as fans probably were trying to figure that out for a lot too. But you know, after the first period, Calgary leads 12-8 in shots. I thought they looked fine. I wasn't overly happy or overly unhappy with the play. I thought the Flames maybe could have had a couple penalties get called going in their favor. But you know what? Flames will take it. If you're coming into a game where for the rest of the season, or for at least a majority of it, every team that you face off against is going to be likely higher than you in the standings. That is what it is with us being at near or as close to the quarter point as you can mathematically be, only playing an 82 game season. But you're at the quarter mark. Likely every team that comes into your building or you go to is going to be higher than you in the standings, if not in the same general consensus area. Because we all know what the opening of the season's been like. So getting through the first unscored on and is okay. Would we like to see the Flames score more goals? Undoubtedly. But we'll take a scoreless draw. Or at least I will. And I speak for us all. That's why I've got the camera. But let's get into the second period. Flames in Winnipeg play a close, gritty second until Mark Scheifele follows the bouncing puck, and it's just kind of a breakout play where I didn't love, or it's after the injury that I talked about. Sam Honzek gets leveled, and like I haven't looked at any replays or letting that go back into my brain bank. I just didn't feel like doing it, to be honest, and I don't feel like watching people get injured. I don't think anyone can really blame me for that. But yeah, Honzek injured behind the play. Kind of expect that when it's a 5-on-4. So Mark Scheifele, he's pretty good at this game. He has 11 goals. Connor and Morrissey on the assist. Josh Morrissey. I was going to wear my Calgary Wild hat, but then I remember Josh Morrissey is a partial owner of the Calgary Wild. Figured I could put that away for today. And then, of course, I know Tokay isn't here. Or I haven't seen them in chat yet. Tokay, are you here? Let's hope that you are. But me and Tokay's favorite Flames defenseman, Jake Bean, gets his first of the season. It's a bit of a scramble draw on the face-off. Pahal shoots it wide, and Bean essentially one-times it home as it comes off the corner boards, beats Hellebuyck. The Flames are on the board. You know, I had this game kind of circled is we all know what Connor Hellebuyck can do in the regular season. I thought this might be one of those games where Hellebuyck just decides I'm the best goaltender in the world and you're not going to forget it and turns it on against the Calgary Flames. Wasn't there on that shot. I think people were saying that it was tipped on route. Regardless, it ends up in the back of the net. That's why you shoot the puck from the point, looking for any weird bounce or angle that you can get. And Jake Bean, the fortuitous soul in that regard. Braden Pahal, Morgan Frost get the assist. The Flames tied up only 30 seconds, or just over 30 seconds after the Mark Scheifele goal. But if you went to the bathroom midway through the second period, I kind of feel bad for you, as only 30 seconds after, on a delayed penalty call, Tanner Pearson gets his third of the year. Some good hard work from the Jets. Did get the pairing of Bean and Pahal out of position. Pahal kind of in no man's land. It jumps off of Bean. It jumps off, I believe, Connor Zary right onto the stick of Tanner Pearson. And it's back to being a 1-goal advantage for the Jets. That one was kind of frustrating. It kind of seemed like everything had to go right for the Jets to score there. And I feel there could have potentially been a offside review on that one. I just don't know. Like, just kind of feels like the Flames aren't willing to necessarily challenge as much. And if you were a watcher of the channel last year with me and Matt doing these shows, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Calgary Flames video coach Jamie Pringle, but haven't seen challenge coming out nearly as often for the Calgary Flames. Is it a good thing? Maybe, because giving up 2-minute minor penalties if the call doesn't go your way isn't actually that great. But I would like to see it come out a little bit more. All I'm going to say on that one is the refs, while they take it away here, they may give it a little bit later. But we'll talk about that as we go on. And then another absolute scoring icon, someone you perfectly expect to score a game-tying goal, Kevin Ball. He takes the feed from Matt Coronado. This one definitely took a deflection on route. Beats Hellebuyck. Some good work there from Ryan Lomberg. And he then gets to the net front, absorbs a couple checks, and it ends up in the back of the net. I know there's a lot of people in this fan base, myself included sometimes, that look at Ryan Lomberg and say, can we not get a little bit of skill or size on that left side of the fourth line occasionally. And no, Ryan Lomberg in there in pen, doing what he does. Gets the plus on it. So what do we know here as some Flames fans sometimes? Shots on goal in the second period, tied at 10 apiece. And, I was pretty relatively okay with that second period too. Would I have liked some of the bounces to go the other way and the hockey gods to decide that the Flames are done being the unluckiest team in this sport? Yeah, I would have loved that. But that's not the reality we live in, unfortunately. But, worst places to be than tied at 2 after 40. Jets get a very early power play in the third period as Connor Zary takes the penalty for interference on Dylan DeMello. And there's some guys on that squad for the Jets that can shoot the puck, including the reintroduction of Cole Perfetti. Flames just can't get the clear. Jets work it around, going lateral, and Perfetti finds a hole in Dustin Wolf. Assist to Kyle Connor and Morrissey. Once again, the Calgary native just absolutely wreaking havoc. 2 assists in the game today in his return to his hometown. And then it was tied until very, very late in the game, where Mark Scheifele takes a 2-minute minor for holding Mackenzie Weegar as he tries to exit the zone. He complains, and I know that I heard something on the hot mics, and it ended in a 10-minute misconduct to Mark Scheifele. There was an F-bomb, so cover your ears if you're sensitive to this. But as he's going to the box, complaining about his penalty, he says directly to the ref, "You effing arrogant prick." That you could hear that loud and clear on the Sportsnet broadcast. And there's just certain things you can't say to authority, especially in sports. And I think that probably crossed the line and was the phrase that ended up getting Scheifele the 10-minute misconduct in addition to the 2-minute penalty. But the Flames, they swarm, and eventually it finds the hottest Calgary Flame in the last 4 games, Matt Coronado, and he just snaps it home. Good adjustments by Matt Coronado, just using 2 guys in that front. He's standing there, taking up space, right next to big, tall Adam Klapka, turns around, spins, and fires. And we got a tie ball game, folks. Assist to Rasmus Anderson, who only does have 4 assists on the year. But Jonathan Huberdeau hits the 5-assist mark himself on Matt Coronado's 5th goal. Overtime. Or let's talk about the shots in the third period first, Conrad. Winnipeg only manages 4 shots in the period. One of them, of course, being a goal. Flames shoot 11 times in the third. I remember, this is kind of how I feel about the Flames. This is like the reverse Daryl Sutter, where Daryl Sutter didn't want you shooting unless it was right in a prime location. It kind of feels like the Flames are starting to just shoot from wherever and just hope that shot volume is going to start playing an effect on how they've been playing after the Flames are one of the worst shoot teams in regards of shooting percentage in the league. So maybe that is what the coaches are saying, that shot volume just needs to go up and you have to hope for some lucky bounces. But you started to see that kind of mentality in the third period. Overtime does in fact solve nothing. So we go to the shootout. Only takes 3 shooters. Morgan Frost starts with that fast to slow, where usually when he starts to slow down, he goes into that wrist shot, which has been very good. This time, instead of shooting, he dekes and just has it trickle off the end of his stick. Connor Hellebuyck just gets a piece of the shaft of Frost's stick, trickles wide. Kyle Connor then shoots for the Jets. He shoots and Dustin Wolf just gets enough to push it up and off the crossbar. And this time he gets out of the way so it doesn't bounce off his back and all the way in. Learning learning opportunity there for the young Flames backstop. And then this confuses me. I'm sure Matt C or anyone that's in chat can gather the stats as I talk, but Jonathan Huberdeau going in the shootout, one of the guys who's been what's cooler than cool, ice cold all year, gets to go. And it almost looked like he was trying to pull off the move that Justin Kirkland is so famous for going to. Of course, Kirkland now down with the Wranglers. And just couldn't get enough whip on it quick enough, and it's right off the post. Or right off the pads. Wasn't overly happy with the attempt. And then a man who, as I said on the broadcast, had 52 goals in the shootout in his career. Jonathan Toews goes in, goes slow. Dustin Wolf gets a blocker to it. We'll keep that number at 52. Thank you very much. And then as Matt C. Anderson not scoring in the shootout. Now I've seen everything. It wasn't my favorite attempt from Rasmus, and I understand why the team elects to go to him. He's been very, very good in the shootout. But that was one of the most uninspiring shootout attempts I've seen from the Flames D-man. Kind of a muffin wrister looking for the 5-hole, and I just don't see that working. Like, we've seen Connor Hellebuyck do this in the preseason to the Flames, where everything that went to his 5-hole in the shootout was stopped. So is that just not scouting, or is that Rasmus only has one move? I don't know. It stopped, giving Gabe Velarde the attempt to beat the Flames. He goes quick. He goes backhand to forehand. Wolf freezes just enough, and he gets beat in the glove side. Final score, 4-3, Winnipeg Jets. And you know what? As I said, fun game. Will us getting a point haunt us moving forward? Would having Justin Kirkland in the lineup have changed anything? Probably not. I actually thought Connor Zary was all right today. And I don't think you should be giving spots on the fourth line to a specialty shootout specialist, regardless. Anyways, other stats we like to talk about on the channel. So total shots on goal. Jets lead 23-34. And this is something rare. No decimal points. No nothing. But the Flames and Jets, they split the faceoffs 50-50 right down the middle. Jets obviously 1 for 1 on their power play. Flames go 1 for 3. Penalty minutes a little bit skewed with the 10-minute misconduct that was handed out to Mark Scheifele. Kept him out of the shootout. I'm pretty happy with that. Hits favored the Flames, 27-21. Block shots also favored the men with the C on their chests. They also gave the puck away and took the puck away less. Flames that led the team in plus minus. None of the D-men actually had any plus or any minus. So if they were on the ice for the goal, I'm looking at you, Jake Bean and Braden Bahal. They're also on for the even strength goal against. Only thing that changed was the forwards who got the minus. Kadri, Coleman, and Cairns in the minus department. Frost, Coronado, and Lomberg in the plus. Guy that really I actually thought struggled was Nazem Kadri today. Went 37.5 in the face-off dot. Didn't get chosen for the shootout. In fact, he was the only flame. He was the flame that was dragging down the face-off percentage. Michael Backlund was 69 or nearly 69%. Nice. In the face-off dot. Morgan Frost above 50% at 53. So yeah, it really was just Nazem Kadri dragging the rest of the team down in that department. Not what you want from your first line center, obviously. But let's go into the next period, and we'll actually talk a little bit about Nasty Naz. But before we do that, if you are here in chat, hey, or if you're live watching, jump on in and chat, say hi. Hey, even if my dad's watching on his phone as he drives home, I'm sure Nephew Palmer, who you took to the game today, knows how to operate the phone and get on and chat. But I think and you know what? If you're going to jump in chat, might as well hit that like button as well. Need to pump those numbers up in an algorithmically driven world. The Flames or Game Over needs to pump those numbers up so that we can get to see more fans. If you want to take this to university out with you in Acadia, looking at someone who may be watching or listening right now in a car. If you want to take this podcast with you to work, we're usually pretty work friendly. If you want to take us with you anywhere and everywhere, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. We want to bump those numbers up. We're at 127 subscribers. Montreal's over at nearly 1,000. Come on. I yap just as well as Kay does. Trust me, I do. She just has a funner team to watch. But I digress. Really is a tough one today for the Flames, and I think it kind of leads the Flames into this discussion of what does the future look like for a lot of these guys? Because I heard a lot of chatter with the injuries going on in Montreal that Montreal needs to pull the trigger on this Nazem Kadri trade sooner rather than later. And obviously the Flames don't owe the Montreal Canadiens anything. But if there is a team that begins to get desperate, that can sometimes lead to a return of greater investment, right? Because we obviously know it's the injuries for months, if not longer, to Newhook and Gooley. Is now the time for the Calgary Flames to go to Murray Edwards and say, hey, I understand you like this core, as do a lot of our fan base. I understand that Nazem Kadri sells jersey like nobody's business. But maybe it's time to at least ask if Montreal's on that no trade list. Gooley was supposed to mix 4 to 6 weeks, is now more in that 8 to 10 week range. And Newhook was not has gone into surgery. You know, it's probably the best time to trade that asset in Nazem Kadri. Because as much as any of us really could want the team to wait until the trade deadline, thinking that will bring more desperation, is the desperation not there for this Montreal Canadiens team, who were doing absolutely fantastic and then have taken a major setback in the last 3 games? Is that not a time where you can take advantage, if you're Craig Conroy and the Flames ownership group, of having this asset to maximize your return? I don't want to have to pull that jersey off the wall again to remind us what happens when you don't flip assets. As Matt C said in chat, Naz has looked rough since his 1,000th game. The sell high window isn't going to stay open forever. Is it though? We all know that Smart Insider Man, or whatever you want to call the Association of NHL General Managers, have long memories, and maybe for all the wrong reasons. So that is my only kind of hesitation as a fan. I'm like, I trust that all these other insider GM types aren't going to remember a short stretch of play where Nazem Kadri is replacement level. They're going to think back to the Nazem Kadri that took the Colorado Avalanche to the Stanley Cup with very key goals. They're going to think of the Nazem Kadri that led this Flames team in scoring last year, you hope. And you just hope they forget about Toronto entirely and how he led them to some pretty early exits with some pretty boneheaded play. But that line is starting to form in the sand. Like, if the Flames want to maximize returns, it seems like this could be the time. And I think the same has to be said for Rasmus Andersson. Because injuries are happening all around the league on the D-core. As we've seen, like, the shuffling back on the back end has turned out relatively well over the last 3 games. The Flames start to turn it around. They obviously get the win in the last appearance, and then scratch tooth and nail to pull out a point in this one. Maybe you can shuffle some of those pieces, move on from big number 4, take your first overall draft pick sooner than later, then take the risk that if someone's wanting Rasmus Andersson because they've got injuries on the back end early, hey, maybe they have another injury or fall off the wagon a bit, and that pick continues to gain value as they plummet down the standings. Albeit most teams who are in a situation like that will top 10 protect that pick, especially considering this next upcoming draft. But hey, there's lots of GMs in this league that don't necessarily have that much foresight. But maybe I'm just the biggest Hunter Rusevich believer in existence and feel that he's ready to make his strides to the NHL games after 1 year as a pro. I also felt the same about Ilya Solovyov, and he's been a, at worst, replacement level defenseman for Colorado. Apologies for the 6-7 hand gesture. But let's head on to period number 3. And obviously, not the happiest period number 3 is Sam Honzek goes down with an injury. I'm trying to find some reporting, and everything I'm seeing suggests it could be a medium-term injury. I don't know if Flames coaching staff have necessarily said anything. Lots of people upset with the Rasmus Andersson in the shootout. Not seeing anything on anything online about the injury. So I guess let's just rapidly speculate. That's the words I'm looking for. Rampantly speculate. There we go. It's been a long day, folks. Let's rampantly speculate about if this is a medium-term injury that ends up with Honzek going on the IR, which is such a shame. Like, this kid just can't stay healthy, and I feel so bad. He finally is effectively a full-time NHLer, not having his name put out by, I don't think, anyone to be returned down to the Wranglers when he's on that line with Coleman and Backlund. And then this injury comes up, and if it is, let's call it a medium-term, day-to-day thing, it just, you got to feel for the kid. While he hasn't been scoring, he certainly hasn't looked out of place defensively. He's had his chances, got his second goal in the empty netter, but it just really starts to feel like a broken record. I guess kind of reminding me of Matthew Lombardi at the end of his Flames tenure, where all the pieces were starting to build there, but the injury bug just came at the worst possible times. And I guess that's probably not a bad comparison. Is it the best one I think I've ever heard? No. But, hey, it might be the one that actually fits, especially in my mind. Jumping on to a way to find out our depth chart on the left wing. Well, obviously the answer to come in the short term is likely going to be Igor Sharangovich. Now, do I see him necessarily slotting in right where Honzek was? No. I actually probably foresee Igor probably slotting in a little bit higher if he is the choice that the Flames decide to go with. Which would likely see the movement of Sam Honzek down to play on that not enforcer, shut down third line with Bax and Coleman, leading goal scorer Blake Coleman. Just a reminder. Other guys that you could potentially see come up, like as much as I want to say Sam Honzek, I don't think that's a likely answer. I don't think he's even skating yet. If my research is correct. Or Martin Pospisil, I mean. I'm just trying to see what the latest on Marty Pospisil is. No real updates. From what I can see and from any sources. Yeah. As of November 8th, which was last week, Salim Valji saying per Huska, no update on Pospisil. Return doesn't seem any closer. If you aren't paying attention to the Marty Party situation, he was skating for about 3 days, then abruptly stops and has not been seen skating since. There's another guy who just can't get out of his own way in the injury department. So yeah, Honzek out with the injury. Dryden Hunt already called up. So that leaves you with maybe Sam Morton as the guy who gets the call up. However, he would likely have to, or he does have to go back on waivers. Guys that aren't waiver eligible, I believe William Stromgren and Lucas Siona are kind of your two middle of the pack in terms of age-wise. Maybe bring up Clark Bishop because he's somebody who could be a center, but then again, he's not, or he requires waivers to be sent back down. Maybe it is just call up Kirkland again and see if he fills in at center and then he moves Zari back over to the wing. I don't really have the answers in that regard for what this Flames team needs to do. Hey, sign Luke Misa and bring him back up. I don't know. Or maybe Jaden Lipinski. Where is he playing right now? Oh, he's at UMaine. We're doing a bit of a deep dive, folks. Jaden Lipinski of the Anaheim Junior Ducks, who I just did some commentary for today over at the Rocky Mountain Classic. Not bad at the University of Maine. 2 goals, 5 assists in 12 games. Not bad. Don't think you're signing him anytime soon until that season's over. Yeah, it's not really pulling from a position of strength for the Flames. If this is a medium to long-term injury to Sam Honzek. I guess the other kind of name I think most people would be kind of highlighting would be Adar Suniev. As everyone knows, when he came in last year, there was a lot of people thinking that Adar Suniev was going to be the next best thing for the Calgary Flames after a career with the Yale Junior Bulldogs and the Hill Academy before heading back during COVID to Moscow and then returning back to the Penticton Vs and signed with UMass as well. A lot of people were thinking that this would be the next guy up for this Flames roster, and I don't know, it just seems to not be there for him in the WHL or in the AHL this year. Played in 15 games, is a -7, 4 goals, 1 assist. So I guess there's not a ton of people in chat today. It's a late one, as I know it's already 11:30. I'm going to pose a question that Matt C, if you're still around, feel free to answer. We'll talk. It's a one-on-one. It's like we're doing the parent-teacher conference where, how do you think your son is doing? Our son being the Calgary Flames. Here's my question for you. Is it time to start seriously considering moving the pieces rather than waiting till the trade deadline? I've said my piece. I think that the Flames, as I said, there's some other teams that are starting to get desperate with seasons not going the way they want, whether if that's Toronto, even though the cupboards are pretty bare in Toronto, unless you're looking at getting a current ready to make that leap from the AHL to the NHL. I know the name Matthew Nyes has been put out there. I know the name Easton Cowan is probably on the thoughts of some Flames when you think a trade potentially with the team that's in blue and white, even though I don't think Murray Edwards would go for a trade with the Maple Leafs. And hey, maybe even Toronto has to make that decision whether they want to potentially trade for a guy that has an incredible goals or incredible stats this season in Devin Cooley, considering that Stolar's, I think his injury just got updated to be only a week long trip on the IR, so I think they'll stick with Woll and Hellebuyck for now. Matt C saying absolutely, I wish they had already started. Yeah. As I've said many times this season, I think Rasmus Andersson should not have made it to game number 1 as a member of the Calgary Flames, but if ifs and buts were candy and nuts. But I think everyone else has gone to sleep. Matt C, thank you so much for joining. Everyone that's going to listen to this in the podcast world, come on over to YouTube. Leave your comment there about what the Flames should do in regards to the roster this far. Should they stand put, wait till the deadline, or should they start moving pieces to some desperate teams? I'll check that out. I will get back to you in the next game. Speaking of which, what is the next game and what is on tap for us here at Game Over Calgary? That's a great question. I'll get that for you. So it is Tuesday, the next game where the Flames go to visit Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. Can they once again steal points from a young and up-and-coming superstar and rebound against the team that thrashed them just over a week ago? Anand Unnithan will be bringing you that game. I'll be back on Wednesday when it will be me and Anand doing a game breakdown against the Sabres, who are actually a hockey team, I guess, this season. That'll be my next appearance on Wednesday. For myself and everyone at the Game Over Network, thank you so much for tuning in. As I said, Anand will be back with you on Tuesday.